Hello, everyone. My name is Issa, and today we'll be talking about blockchain, but more especially enterprise blockchain. So typically, we look at blockchains as public ledgers, which do not provide business use case because of the fact that it is public. Therefore, businesses would not be able to use public blockchains to integrate into their businesses, seeing that anybody and everyone will be able to look into transactions and so forth. Okay, so introduction to enterprise blockchain. What is it? So enterprise blockchain is a type of permissioned blockchain that can be used to streamline business processes at scale, as well as track supply chain goods or settle global payments. Now, why is this important? Now, it is important because um, the ability that blockchain gives for enterprises and businesses to collaborate with each other on the blockchain, which would make it easier for businesses to scale and to streamline their processes. Now, let's take a look at a few movers and shakers in the enterprise blockchain world. Firstly, we have R3 Corda and Conclave, very exciting project because they base their development on languages that developers are already used to. So we're talking about C# and Java, as well as Python. So development and integration with this with the blockchain is seamless, as well as the fact that they offer the Conclave product, which is a cloud service, decentralized cloud service for businesses. We also have Hadira Hashgraph. They're more of a general purpose blockchain, so all types of use cases can be applied to the blockchain service. Okay, we also have the Quant network. Now, the Quant network's main goal is interoperability because as businesses move onto or start including or implementing blockchain strategies, you will have a bunch of blockchains that will not necessarily be able to speak to each other. So the Quant network is providing the infrastructure for enterprises to link different blockchains and to provide that layer of communication. And lastly, we have VeChain. They are more focused on supply chain management. So you talk about your import exports and so forth. So they focus more on that. Now you do have IBM as well as Microsoft that are already offering blockchain solutions to businesses. However, I've chosen not to look much into them. I'm looking at more of the startups who are disrupting the industry. Now, let's talk about a few use cases when it comes to enterprise blockchain. We look at home loans and property finance. The process of registering and transferring a property can take anywhere between 8 to 12 weeks. Now, that is a perfect use case for enterprise blockchain because it will allow for a more seamless process and also decrease the registration and transfer period. Also, improvements to the SWIFT international payment system. Now, currently, moving money across borders is a bit of a tedious process because there's a lot of regulations that you have to go through. Using enterprise blockchain for that, having a smart contract in place that will facilitate those payments can allow us to make payments in real time. I will talk about an example of that later on in my talk. And also supply chain management, as I've mentioned from the VeChain protocol, what they're trying to do in terms of managing supply chain. Okay, so let's quickly look at a use case. I've chosen the home loan process because I have quite a bit of experience with regards to that. Now, these are all the stakeholders that the process would traditionally flow through, right? You have the client, agent, bank, valuator, as well as tax authorities, attorneys, deeds office, and municipality. Now, the problem with this, our current flow, is that the transfer of information and transfer of transactional data is not asynchronous. It's a synchronous process. So it goes from one end to the other, and that is what actually increases the amount of time it takes for a property to be registered. Now, if we had to apply an enterprise blockchain with the very same example, we would see here that we have the chain holding a smart contract right in the center, and all these stakeholders would be able to run their own nodes, which would then be able to obtain real-time information and business data relating to a specific transaction. So the flow of data now becomes asynchronous, and it would be able to now decrease the time it would take for a simple registration of a property. Okay, so now it is not a blanket strategy that every business would need to employ. The integration of enterprise blockchain is a costly integration, okay, as well as the amount of power consumption. But that only holds true for proof of work protocols, something like Bitcoin, Litecoin, and so forth. However, when you look at the more modern blockchain protocols like Hadira Hashgraph, they use validation concepts like Byzantine as well as proof of stake. That significantly reduces the amount of power consumption. And in terms of another con, we have social resistance. Now, the implementation of blockchain, as we would have seen from the example of the use case that I provided, you cut down a few middlemen. Now, in my example, we cut out the attorneys, because we would have a smart contract in place that would govern the entire process, and there wouldn't be a need for that. So social resistance, because there are players that would be negatively impacted by the integration of enterprise blockchains. Now, let's quickly look at early adopters. And I've limited my examples to our South African region. Now, Standard Bank has recently run a trial with the Royal Bank of Philippines. The trial was in fact successful, where they are basically skipping the entire SWIFT process in order to make cross-border remittance more seamless and available to more users. Second adopter would be Absa. In fact, Absa has recently joined the Hyperledger protocol, the foundation. So they will also be looking into further integrations. But this specific example is for self-sovereign identity that Absa is working on with the sovereign protocol. Now, why I'm excited about this particularly is because in a lot of the developing nations, they do not have an established identity system like we have with Home Affairs. So this would provide a lot of governments the ability to easily provide identity to a lot of or to all their citizens. And lastly, UJ, I'm not too sure of the protocol, but this was just a recent announcement that they will be issuing their certificates in a digital format through NFTs. That would also allow for easy confirmation and verification of qualifications for graduates and so forth. Now, that is basically my talk. And